the editor of the magazine wrote back and said, imagine the biggest pile of crap that you have ever seen. Now imagine that pile of crap is just the tip of of an even greater, huger pile of crap. That is the Golden Eye multiplayer compared to Halo.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel, a podcast about video games, entertainment, sometimes anime, life, a little bit of everything between. I'm your host, Joe, and with me, the man who always says hello to people at the urinal and tries to have friendly conversations, um, the guy who likes to shake your hand and won't leave you alone, Nick.
That's a
How you
lie.
doing, Nick?
That is a lie. I never
Oh,
make
I know you
contact.
high five. I'm sorry. You like
I
to high
never
five.
make eye contact with anyone at the urinal. It drives me crazy when people try to make conversation or say anything at the urinal. It also drives me crazy when people look down at the urinal. It's like you start and you start by looking down, sure, make sure everything's going where it's supposed to, and then you look up and look at the wall. That is the only thing that you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to do anything else until you're done. Zip up, and then you go to the sink, and then at the sink you can make some light conversation, but preferably not.
But then why is it that whenever you check the stalls, you end up trying to look through the gap between the
I don't
doors?
do that, Joe. That's a lie.
I don't know. It's just your word against mine, and since I'm hosting, I guess I'm right. All right, good to know. Um, so now that we've seen all of Nick's dark crimes here, uh, let's get on to the actual episode. This is episode 36. We're recording this today, Friday, the 27th of
Damn you.
January, and hopefully, if Nick isn't creating any more bathroom crimes, this will be up on Saturday.
Yeah, let's hope so.
All right. Hey, I just call it as I see it, and as I see it, it's pretty awkward. All right. So other than that, how have you been? I know you've been pretty busy this last couple weeks.
I've been okay. Can't complain. Have you been, Joe?
Oh yeah, super busy. No, we ended up. We'll talk about. I've actually been able to play a few games that's come out recently. Or one was a follow up to something we talked about before, and yeah, other than that, it's just I'm gonna have taking some PTO next week, and so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then there's gonna be Chicago's having their restaurant week going on, where a couple of the restaurant participating restaurants will have like a set course meal for a decent price, and so we're just trying to determine which where we want to go. Uh, yeah, that's about it.
I can't
Yeah,
remember. I
all
think
right.
I think when I lived in Honolulu, they had something like that, and we tried that a couple times, and it was it. Well, we tried it like once. I remember, and it was not as good as we kind of thought that it should be. But they probably just set their prices a little too low, because it was decent priced stuff, but it wasn't really all that great. I hope yours is a better. I hope you have a better time than I did.
Yeah, me too. I hope I had a better time than you did.
It's always the case.
No, it's they do a thing in the summer called the Taste of Chicago as well, which I think is at a park where you buy tickets and stuff, and they have like a bunch of vendors there. But no, this is straight up with restaurants, participating restaurants, and they'll have it's like a 25 or $30 for like a brunch lunch like set as it were, and then dinner is like I forget, it's like 40 or $50 for a course meal, multi-course meal, and then you pay whatever extra for, of course, drinks and tip. So it's like, all right, you know, unfortunately with the kids, it's a little harder to do those evening dinners. But
Yeah.
since I have a day off during the week, I'm like, okay, cool. Kids will be at daycare and they won't appreciate good food anyways.
Yeah,
So
they're still figuring out a solid food in general, so they're not really going to be connoisseurs. But that's cool, man. I hope it. I mean, for 40, $50, you should be able to get something pretty decent, I would think. So yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
for
good.
sure. All right. But no, it's yeah, thanks for asking about that. And yeah, so what do we got on the news, man? It's we got a couple key things I thought, but nothing
Well,
too great.
we got some bad news and we got some good-ish news. The bad news is this almost wouldn't be in our purview, but because of a recent game that came out, it is in our purview. So Justin Roiland of Rick and Morty fame, the voice for both Rick and Morty, um, has been charged with some different things, domestic abuse, and the list gets kind of long of exactly what, but basically, from what I heard, maybe you heard something a little different, but from what I heard, the biggest charges have to do with him, like false imprisonment. Like apparently he imprisoned a girl in a bathroom for a certain amount of time and did a bunch of other sort of weird stuff. Let her go eventually, it seems like, but definitely did some pretty bad things. They're saying. Um, I did hear something from his legal team where they said that they expect him to be exonerated. Of course, they would say that, blah, blah. Um, but that's kind of what's going on with that part. There's also um, some information coming out that may or may not be true, but seems like it might be true, of texts of a intimate nature with underage people. I had a chance to look at some of these texts, and if they are real, then they're pretty bad. Um, they're definitely not good. And yeah, so that's kind of the long and short of it. There's also some stuff about what the studio is going to do going forward, but yeah, that's sort of what's going on with old Justin right now.
Yeah, I know when it first came to light, there was, it was mostly assault charges that, seem to be popping up on the news feeds, and then Adult Swim has cut ties with him, and so it's like, a lot of people are like, "Well, what's gonna happen to the studio?" Because he was also a co-creator, if I remember correctly, not just the voices,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, but the team should be able to, to move on. Unfortunately, yeah, it kind of stains the name, and it'll be weird if they I mean, if you could try to get someone to a voice sound alike, 'cause plenty of people probably make
Can
a
make
pretty
that
good
voice.
replica,
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's just like, you see a show if he's, co-creator, and he's a show like Rick and Morty, and, like, that show has a lot of issues with the people in it, at least, like, they're flawed characters, to say the least, and then you'd be like, to it's not that far a stretch of the imagination to be like, "Oh, wow." Yeah, the people creating it may or at least one of the creators may be having something, bad and, like so, yeah,
from
it's we'll see how that pans out, but man, yeah, it does not look good either, and unfortunately, it does, leave a kind of the company with a black eye. It doesn't matter, like, what happens in the future.
well, I mean, yeah, he's the voices and stuff like that, but and co-creator, but I think he's also pretty big on the writing front. Um, so yeah, it's not ideal to lose him. Um, it's I don't know. Like I never got into Rick and Morty. It was kind of the train had kind of left the station by the time I had heard how good it was. And it just American animation is not that interesting to me. So, so I don't know. I'd have to watch the show probably from the beginning when it started to give you a really accurate idea of what is likely to happen. Um, but I mean, they're gonna they're gonna press on. I think they're in season 7, and I read that they're like locked in to go till season 10. Um, it's taken them 10 years to get this far, apparently, which is sort of weird.
Um,
But
with pandemic and stuff, and plus in the early on, shows like that generally have a break when they're not like majorly syndicated, something like a Fox show, cartoon show or something like that. But the Adult Swim stuff, it's like, yeah, it doesn't run on the same cycle. Even kids shows like Teen Titans or was it Steven Universe? Steven Universe had a really weird it's like the first season of the show was like 2 or 3 years in the making, on and off here and there, like, so it was weird stuff like that. So
yeah,
I can see that being the case.
I can see
Um,
them needing to take more time or whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
I really liked the show myself, but I stopped after season 3 or 4. I think maybe 4. It's just life happened, couldn't and just didn't, it's one of those things,
Just
I'll get
dropped
back to it
off.
eventually, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what's going on right now. It seems I don't know, like they'll probably recover because they have to. But it's definitely dadgummit. It's definitely not great. So yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll talk a little bit more about Justin Roiland a little later. And then too, I mean, I kind of feel bad for the guy because um, these are just charges, and he resigned. So I imagine he was probably asked to resign and decided to go ahead and do that. Um, it's just kind of it just kind of sucks that like he has to resign based on charges alone. You know, there's going to be a trial and all that stuff. And I kind of get that the company's like, we want to wash our hands of this right away, but like, and he's probably not innocent. But let's just say, like, for argument's sake, what if he is innocent?
You mean
Um,
innocent until proven guilty? Oh, dude, I don't, that's just a hard concept
I
for me to
know
understand.
it's crazy, but like, what if he is innocent and he has been expunged from his company or this company? Um, you know, I guess you could say, well, the company would just would welcome him back with open arms. It's like, yeah, for him maybe, but what about somebody else, like an artist or whatever on that team, or somebody lower level person? Like, would they get their job back? Probably not. They would just be out the job, and the company would be like, well, we already hired somebody else, so oh well. And it's just kind of like, what if we didn't fire people uh, straight away, or ask them to resign or whatever straight away whenever someone has made, you know, allegations? And if the show goes under, you know, because of this, or just isn't as good or whatever, loses money, then and it does come out that he's innocent or whatever, then it's like, well, they lost money just because somebody said he did something bad. Now, he probably he probably did or whatever. It remains to be seen. But for the time being, it's like we
Okay,
don't know what happens.
I see your point, and yeah, I hear you. Everyone should, in an ideal society, everyone should be innocent until proven guilty. But at the same time, it's, well, when you have it's like if you have this case going on, you want, you know unless if you're expecting the series to stop while the case is going on for who knows how long this takes, uh, it's just like, well, that means all their jobs are just gonna be stopped anyways. Or is he supposed to continue working while all this negative and bad press happens? As we've already proven earlier in this podcast, and an allegation holds more weight than the actual maybe truth. And so the whole world knows that you ask for toilet paper just for an excuse to try to grab someone's hand from under the stall, Nick, then that's why you do that.
It's a
Um,
pretty good idea.
and you like to peek at people, and stuff like that. We've already determined that that's the truth. Um, so allegations aside, it's solid fact. No,
I mean,
that's just, it is what it is, and then it comes, and it sucks, but unfortunately, you have to distance yourself because unless if the season was happened to be already finished. Um, but this they're going to continue to make stuff. They need
Well, the the the
even with the
problem is
allegation,
that
the people who are working right beside you, like, are you gonna wanna work just even your day-to-day job, are you gonna wanna work beside someone who has an allegation or, like, public, you know, publicity of something going on? It's like, if you didn't know about a trial or something like that, like, that's one thing, but if you fully know that they're, accused of something, like, even if you don't necessarily think, like, "Yeah, they probably that's probably a false charge," you're like, how are you gonna do it's like, it's gonna just be weird working with them. So until it's all cleared, and then what happens out next? It's like, do they actually ask him back? Does he actually wanna go back? Be like, "Hey, guys, you treated me like crap," or, like, or going back and be awkward. "Yeah, you remember when we all hated you for that bit because we all thought you were guilty, and turns out you weren't? Um, yeah, like, let's just laugh at under it's all water under the bridge, right?" Those relationships will never be the same, no matter what the case, like, that from allegation point, like, unless if it was like, they had that solidarity being like, "No way this is true. We have your back. We know this is all fake." But,
like from
even
the
you mentioned
company
there seems to be quite a
perspective,
bit.
I see like you are afraid that people are going to boycott the show based on allegations because people do that kind of stuff all the time. Um, the problem is that it's people, companies kowtowing to mob rule essentially. Like that this mob is like, well, he's got allegations against him. It's like, well, that's why we have a legal system. It's why we have a justice system that is flawed, sure, but but it's it doesn't seem fair to me to punish people before a professional legal system has had its say. And I just don't like the idea of being controlled by a mob. Like if it was my company, I would I don't know what I would do because I'd have to really
So
consider like
this is
like
different than mob mentality, though. Because it's not the mob. The mob didn't say, "Hey, fire him now."
but they would
Um,
have, but they would. And that's what they're
oh yes,
afraid
but
of.
this we've been this way as a society for way longer than most people, want to even think about. Yes, of recent note, things like this have happened, and we'll mention our in the next article about how mob mentality kind of working for the better. Um,
Yeah.
kind of, but at the same time, working towards a goal. And yes, there is there is something to be said about that, but at the same time, it's just like, um, now if I state an opinion, not and it's just my opinion, but not one of the company, it's like that's when things get shady. Be like, "Hey, I believe in X, Y, and Z," and the company's like, "Well, we don't stand by that, and now we want you to go."
Yeah.
Or because I said I stand by X, Y, Z, and I'm not like, and then all of a sudden the mob mentality says, "You like we hate you now." Um, it's just like, uh then the company were to react, that's one thing. But when it comes to actual criminal charges, there's one thing, it's like to separate yourself is one thing. To uh, now he didn't have to. He may have not had to resign. He could have taken
A
a
leave of
leave of
absence or
absence.
something. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that was always
I-
the political polite thing to do, being like, I'm not being thrown away. We're not, and I'm not, like, but I'm not also going to create a hindrance to everyone. You know, uh, but also sometimes when it comes to things like this, there might be,
and
when it's come to those other big video game companies and their
yeah.
allegations, some people have backed down real quick because, like, hey, there might be other issues with the company themselves. Like,
Yeah,
they might,
and he
so
might have resigned of his own accord without being asked to, and just decided I'm just going to resign, in order to save the company, anything like that. And I respect that. And I mean, just kind of putting it like if it was my company and this happened to one of my employees, um, yeah, I mean, it would be really hard for me not to make the same choice though too, and because it's like, well, you know, are we all going to sink because the mob is going to destroy our company because of like one people, like one person. It's like, well, you can't control the mob. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, but you can sort of appease them. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It would be something that that I'd probably have to make a choice on whenever I came to it. So I can kind of see it both ways. It is tough. I just I don't know. I hope it's not true. I have a feeling it is, but I hope it's not, and we'll just see what happens next.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking, but on that topic of mob mentality, yeah, what's what the next article we got here?
So the next story is a little bit of good news. So Wizards of the Coast, the makers of Dungeons and Dragons, maybe you've heard of it. They had a big kerfuffle with their open games license. They were going to basically take that down and put up a new one, and it was going to rip. It was going to basically remove a lot of third party ability to make stuff for D&D. People got mad, so people got very angry. The D&D internet space just went ablaze. Um, memes galore. And so they came around. They said, okay, we're going to put it on pause. And then there's another week. And they decided to leave the OGL in place. So it is OGL 1.0, and it's going to stay that way. And but they also went a step further, and they are putting the SRD, which I think is the standard rule something. Anyway, basically it's like the core rule set for D&D. I'm pretty sure they are putting that under a Creative Commons license. So what that means is basically they will no longer have control over it from a intellectual property standpoint. That means anybody can use that SRD, and they can
Systems reference document.
okay, yeah. So they can use the system reference document um, to make content for D&D that works with D&D. So that is, as far as I understand, that is basically the core rule set, everything that you would need to be able to make stuff and have it apply and work, programming wise in game. Um, so that's a pretty big move. Um, it's it's overall it's a good thing. It goes a long way to repairing the damage that was done, because it's a commitment. It's something of a commitment, showing the public that they are not going to later again try to redo the OGL. They're saying we're giving that to you guys, and everything after that, everything after the standard stuff, we are going to hold on to our IP. So any extra books and stuff like that, we're hanging on to that, which makes sense. And it's pretty much what everybody wanted. Everybody on YouTube is saying, we won, we won, we won. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's really the best attitude to have, but that's the way people are on YouTube. So yeah, it's stay of execution, at least for the time being.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they'll find another way to try to turn the system to make money. That's that was the whole point of it is they weren't making enough. They wanted a piece of it, and so their lawyers will now knowing what they have to go against, they'll find something else. And it's unfortunate, but it is the inevitability on this situation. We would have been yeah, the people won, but unfortunately, it should have never come up is what is how they really should have looked at it. It shouldn't have been messed with. It got messed with. They're gonna mess with it again. Um,
Yeah, the lesson that they have learned, because it's the lesson that all companies learn about this, is to do it very slowly over time in very tiny increments, and then nobody and the other thing too is that they really they really screwed up because they did not have a value offer, a new huge value offer to go along with this. They kind of thought they did because Open D&D is coming out at some point soon. But where they really screwed up is they they should have come out with that, and then at the same time, maybe not such a draconian move with the OGL, but something similar, going like, okay, we're simultaneously removing some of that old stuff while we're giving you this really awesome new software that's going to replace everything that you're using. That people, it still would have been a firestorm, uh, but it would have been, it may have been less, and they may have been able to keep more of the ground that they clearly wanted to win here. But you're right. I mean, that's kind of why like this almost makes me want to pay for something with D&D again, but I keep thinking like you said, like they're just they're just they're just regathering the troops, they're regrouping, and they're going to come around and do something different. But I think most people are going to forget about this, and especially new players are not going to know anything about it, or they're going to look at it and go, "Oh, well, they did a good thing, right?" And they're just going to buy their D&D brand new, and the squeeze is coming, but it's going to be on new players probably.
Yeah. So all right. It's unfortunate inevitability, but at the same time, hey, the status quo is remained the same at least for now. So,
Sorry
you know,
to black pill you, but that's probably what's going to happen. This is the black pill episode.
so all right here. On a slightly, you know, lighter bit of news, Xbox and Bethesda did their developer direct the other week, and so what happened from that was it was a shorter one. They came out right ahead and said it wasn't going to be like this big massive thing, like not a lot of new games, but they had just boiled it down to a few major titles. I believe it was Forza, Elder Scrolls Online, Minecraft, Redfall, and they unveiled a new game called Hi-Fi Rush. And so for me personally, the only real takeaways were like I was more interested in the Forza because this it's always good to look at. I always like looking at a good Forza game. Uh, they just went on talking very highly about like the modeling, the dirt buildup, and this and that. I'm like, okay, yep, it looks amazing. I got you. You know, and uh, but yeah, they unveiled kind of out of the blue. Hi-Fi Rush, and it's I don't know if you actually got a chance to see any of this,
I
Nick.
kind of looked at it, but I didn't look at actually any gameplay. I just saw some screenshots. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's this was done by Tango GameWorks, the guys who brought you Evil Within. Uh, um, so a very similar game, as you can tell by the art. No, so this game,
Pretty weird,
Hi-Fi
yeah.
Rush, is very much a cell shaded. It looks something like a cross between uh I don't know, you have a Jet Set Radio Future, kind of vibe going to it.
Yep.
It's a third person action with uh, having to do with music and rhythm. It is a really unique game. I like it a lot. The music's kind of a little bit all over the place, which isn't a bad thing. It's just you know, so I went ahead and I played the first 2 bosses out of this one. So, I did put some time into it. I know I'm cutting into our what we've been playing a little bit, but I'm like, "It's right here, so I'll go ahead and get this out of the way now." And, yeah, it's like if you took, like, it has that the main character reminds me for some reason of, like, Marty McFly. It's that, the young, energetic kid who's not really the brightest, but he's, he's kind of, quirky and likable in a certain way. But you gotta kinda have a simple kid, simple-minded fool, to play your hero. And essentially it's just a weird it's a big giant corporations going ahead and giving people upgrades to their bodies by giving them robotic parts. They don't really talk about too much what that extent is, but essentially they're like, all right, cool, he's signing up for this new better experience,
Okay.
and it's like they end up stripping him pretty much of all his belongings and be like, "All right, you're about to be like roboticized, like Dr.
all right.
Robotnik." His
Transhumanism. I'm in. Okay.
Uh, it turns out one of the leaders of the group just happens to be like pick up. He's talking about like he was. I was expecting the cream of the crop, and you're just giving me like cannon fodder, essentially. I'm like paraphrasing, but he picks up the dude's iPod. It's like it's like the Gen One iPod, and he's just like, this is like garbage, and he just throws it, and it happens to stumble and fall down the rafters, and it lands right onto his chest, right before he's going to be like panini pressed into a robot. And when it pops up, it ejects him into the wall because he's a defect, and it just smashes into like his face smashes into the wall, and he's just grabbing his face in pain. It's pretty funny. But
Okay.
yeah, now he has a robot arm, but beforehand it was just a broken arm. So now it's completely machine oriented, and it's being powered by his iPod that's now embedded into his chest. Um, and now he sees the whole world, and it happens to be going to the beat of the music. So it's like a quarter beat every, and then if you just his idle animation is just him snapping his fingers. It's and they just quickly tell you like, hey, you and the enemies, when you hit the attack button, will automatically attack on the beat. Now, if you happen to time it with the beat, you'll get a stronger attack. And you have a
Oh,
light attack, which is every quarter beat. And then you have to, if you skip a beat, that would be your heavy attack. So you hit. I'm playing this on the Xbox Series X, but it's also on PC Game Pass.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's like, light attack is X, Y is heavy attack, and it's a third person action, action platformer, uh, and it's pretty for now. It's pretty easy. I'm just playing on the normal setting. I didn't. There's like four settings. You got the uh, the easy, normal, hard, and whatever like the extreme version is.
Yeah.
But I usually default to when it comes to games like this to whatever the developers suggest. You know, so that was normal, and yeah, it's the art style is pretty awesome. It's very much that cell shaded like Telltale slash Jet Set Radio future, and I I'm very much blown away about how smooth the transition cutscenes and the actual just the world looks. They nail their style like 100%. Uh, yeah, and like you like a traditional platformer. Like I said, this kind of in the beginning I was going to say they like mashed it's a mashup between Jet Set Radio and honestly I think Ratchet and Clank, because it has this like the world isn't quite open world, but they have these level designs where they have a bunch of hidden things. You're collecting gear, while Ratchet and Clank could be collecting bolts and such.
Right.
And you peek behind things. You can break boxes to unveil like new hidden areas, kind of, and you're collecting special upgrades. So it has that it reminds me of and plus the bystanders in this game, the NPCs, they're also just talking machines. Now, are they like? I'm pretty sure they're just straight up machines from the get go, but they could be humans turned into robots. I don't actually know. Um, but yeah, just that the comedy and the way they banter reminds me of like Ratchet and Clank game. And yeah, by the time I got to the first boss, it was the main music for that level was like it just dropped 9 Inch Nails. Like I'm like,
Wow,
oh,
really?
I was not expect yeah, I was not expecting 9 Inch Nails like to be the first boss music. I was like, okay. Um yeah, it's just I've only gotten to I've beat the first two bosses. The second boss is one of the corpo underlings. So there's like a council, like they're like I think it's 6 or 7 people,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I went ahead, her name was Rekka, and she's just essentially uh, this pro wrestler who's in charge of production line, and so everything she says is always in all the memos. They're all in caps, and it's always talking in third person. Rekka doesn't believe in this, and Rekka's like, Rekka believes that you have to try harder. There's no excuses, stuff like that. So, uh, as she's talking to you, like she bumps her fists and it's in time with the music. So like, it's just, they do an extra like emphasis on the clinging of metal gloves and it's just like everything is pretty good. I think this is a unique game. It is a little slower than I would like as far as movement goes, traversal,
Okay.
because it reminds me so much of Jet Set Radio, and I just love how fast you are in that game. Now, it's not really slow by any means, but it's just I wish there was like a dash or like even it kind of has that same vibe of shoot, I'm trying to remember the Xbox One game that released. It was shoot, it was the Insomnia game. It was only on Xbox exclusive, and I'm drawing a complete blank now. It'll come to me later. Uh,
Do you think they're gonna add
Sunset Overdrive. There you go.
Sunset Overdrive? Do you think that
Sunset Overdrive.
do you
Yeah,
think they're
that
gonna
was a
add
fast game,
like a
and it has a
dash?
really unique style to it.
Do you think they're gonna add a dash like that you're gonna be able to earn later in the game or something? Like they're saving that?
So they give you a combat maneuver dash, and you can dash up to a chain 3. It's, like, to the beat of the music.
Yeah.
So you can dash 1, 2, and 3. It's not as fast or as long distance as I personally would like. It's mostly a defensive maneuver,
Uh,
or you can dash into an attack, but it's not like, when you're playing a Metroidvania style game where the dash is substantially faster or anything like that. It's more of a movement capability, kind of like a Doom or something like that, where they instantly give you a double jump though. So props for that. Total props. Like double jump right off the gate. I'm like, I like having a double jump.
okay.
And they give you that dash pretty early on, so you can just double jump dash to make to ledge and stuff like that. Um, I'm not sure how much I assume that they're gonna let you have a little more free roaming capability later because it's pretty solid level design, and instantly you're like, "Oh, this is obviously a door I can't come back to yet." Um, like, "This looks like I can break it, but it has some sort of barrier," or like, "This doorway has flames shooting down. There's just a constant flamethrower." And I'm like, "So, there must be some way for me to get through that at a different time." Because I can see items and treasure on the other side, so but it feels like very much a linear way. I'm just going from point A to point B. Uh, and if you like anything like the Devil May Cry games,
Mhm.
they have the encounters are just little arenas. So, you'll get to an area, you'll see like, oh, there's a hatches on the floor. So obviously when I walk into this area, the enemy is going to pop up from the hatches. And once you beat the set amount of enemies, you're scored on your technique, your timing, and your overall speed for that encounter. So they'll rate you, like I don't know how low it goes, but like it maybe a D is the lowest I've gotten, um, because I had no idea what I was doing at first.
Yeah.
But and so they'll average the 3, and then you'll get an average ranking for that encounter. And then at the end of the level, they'll show you all your encounters and all your rankings, and that kind of just lets you know how you did. So I was able to get a couple S ranks, but generally I'll get like an A or B for most of my stuff, mainly because my timing may not be the best, or I might not have the high enough score for my combos because I'll just rely on some of the more basic, sets. But then I'll usually get like an S rank for my time because I'm like, this is the quickest way for me to beat this encounter. I wish I don't know, I wish the combat was just a little different, but I'm kinda bad when it comes to this specific type of rhythm game.
Yeah.
Um, Crypt of the Necrodancer, I was not good at that game at all.
I
I was
played
very bad at that game.
I played that for a couple levels and it was super hard. That game is super hard.
Yeah,
But it's
see,
really
I couldn't
fun,
wrap my
but
brain around
dadgum.
it, so that's
Yeah.
that's I'm better at this than I am at that by far,
Oh,
but,
okay.
at the same time but, at the same time, I'm just like, there's like sometimes I just can't, like I'm always having to keep the rhythm, and they give you enough aids, like the background items, the trees will like shake to the rhythm to the beats. You'll see other objects, like pistons and stuff. Everything's in time, so whenever a platform comes up, the platform would go onto the beat. You can even turn on an indicator so you can see the beat markers hit the fall on the bottom of the screen, and so the center of this like an icon will pulse. So you will always have something to help you, not just the audio cues. And so they're really they're really friendly that way. And you can but yeah, for the most part, like I said, I've had a pretty good time with this game. I've played it for maybe I think only like 3 hours, maybe 4 hours roughly. Um I actually do have I do like the traversal to explore and find some of the stuff 'cause, you kinda give yourself a little pat on the back. You're like, "Ha, I found this hidden," nothing special, but, like, I found the new hidden item. And, it's, yeah, look, you'll end up getting more characters and stuff like that. So, yeah, I thoroughly, am enjoying my time. I'm hopefully gonna play this. I wanna play through completion. I think I might commit to that.
How long do you think it's going to
Uh
be? Like 10, 20 hours?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more like, I would say, like, maybe 10 to 15.
Okay.
That's just once again, though, if not sure, I don't think you'll end up facing all the, like, the council members, all like, I wanna say there's, like, 6 of them total, maybe 7. And so I already beat 1 in the span of, like, 3 hours. So if you do the math that way, then that one, it might come out to, another, 15. So yeah, it might be under 20 hours. At the time of when I started it, because it just came out, like, on the 25th, they announced it, they dropped it, so it's like, oh wow. So there was no, I guess no early copies out, and so Time to Beat still didn't have anything in their uh, on the Game Pass page. They didn't have it filled in at all, so they didn't like give you a hint. So,
Yeah, so you have no idea, but I'm so sure someone's probably gotten a hold of it by now,
oh yeah, by now, yeah,
and
it's
has
been 2 days. Someone's guaranteed to have beaten it by now.
has already gotten on there and been beating it. Sounds pretty cool though. It sounds like it probably needs to be a bit snappier on movement, but that might not be the end of the world. So
Once again,
good.
it's
Sounds like
it's
you
a
like
thing
it.
for me though, personally, because I'm not when it comes to a Devil May Cry game, I'm really bad when they rank you for like style and stuff like that. I'm not good at that at all. So I think it's more of a me problem than the game itself.
Oh, so maybe you would if if you were better at
Someone
style,
else who's
you
a little
would
more skilled
be
with that would easily
doing
clean house.
you'd be
Yeah.
doing the dance, and you wouldn't really need so much of the rush dashes or anything like that, and you would feel like okay, that might be true, but also you kind of just want I don't know in games a lot of times I just want a way to I want the way to move fast to be really satisfying, but
Yeah, well,
yeah.
like when I get with a game like Jet Set Radio, Sunset Overdrive, even the newest Ratchet and Clank, I mean, they have like implements to go fast, grinding on rails and stuff like that. And it's just like there was one segment where you kind of grind on a rail, but it's meant to be at a certain point you're like in a tunnel and then you're meant to it's is a sequence. And so that was the I'm like, I really do hope that they give you some sort of faster movement, personally, but that's because I like a game that gives you fast movement. Any any first person shooter that lets you like run way faster than a human should, naturally, I prefer that instead of walking as a slow tank. That's
Yeah,
why,
it
and
just
because
keeps
this game, like I
things
said, reminds
more
me so much of
interesting.
Jet Set Radio,
Yeah,
has that fun vibe of a Sunset Overdrive. Those games are about having speed, and that's why I think my brain is trying to like is having a hard time comprehending or wanting. I want more speed out of this.
right.
So,
Okay.
oh, but yeah, outside of the other than that, on the conference, they talked about Elder Scrolls Online. I don't know anyone who personally plays it, so I have very little care about
I'm
that.
honestly really surprised that that is still in operation. It must not
Yeah.
be very expensive to run.
So, it must bring them some money, right? But yeah, Redfall. Redfall is they're saying is launching May 2nd,
Yep.
and that one is now up for pre-orders on like Epic Games and such. So I am very curious about this game because I only saw the very first trailer, the first two trailers that came out, and then I know they've shown more of it since. And so I've kept myself in the dark about it, but I have heard other people explain it a little bit better because at first you didn't know what to expect from the first cinematic, and then out of the second trailer, it made it feel like it was like a Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood style game, and I was like, "Oh, do I really want that?" I'm like, "I'll play it, but it's not, I'm not too hyped about it." And then from what I've heard, it's gonna be very different from that. And I'm like, "Okay, well, it's gonna be more of a traditional style game." I'm like, "That sounds more exciting." Uh, so I've literally when I came to this, I'm like, I just stopped. I'm like, "Okay, I'm not gonna watch this segment because I wanna be." I just want to come into this hyped, I guess. So this is one of the few games this year that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, as people are looking
Like
forward to Redfall, I've seen some screenshots, I think, and not really much on gameplay, though, so I can't make too big of a judgment. But I just remember thinking that what I saw was like, well, this looks like it'll be fun for somebody. It looks well made, but it didn't seem right up my alley. But whenever it comes out, I'll probably take a better look and then maybe give it a try. So yeah, looking
yeah.
forward to that too.
All right, and the last bit of news is actually today. So GoldenEye,
Oh yeah.
had just
Okay.
launched on Game Pass.
All right.
Uh, so this is one of those
Is it
games that
good?
my coworkers got really stoked about this. I I personally realized I don't like GoldenEye anymore. Recently, as in like I don't know, a handful of years ago.
I mean,
Like
it's
I remember loving it as a kid. It was great. Then we all went to a barcade, and we're like, yeah. So like they had it there, like yeah, let's play. And we are all trying to play. Like this game is really bad. Like we forgot how bad it was, but because there was nothing like it really at the time, uh, it's like it didn't matter. It was just like you played it, you had fun, you didn't know any better. But since then, games have evolved a long way. Now this has all the proper amenities as a modern game should. You can look up and down properly, unlike the old Nintendo 64 controller. Uh, this I haven't heard anything bad things about this one. I just know it had a really weird history with the fact that it was, between not being released and then, being shelved for a long time, being unearthed and stuff like that. So, uh, but like I said, a handful of coworkers were like, "Yeah, we need to play this. We need to get this to like, get the group together."
I've been
And I'm like,
seeing this popping up at different places, and I remember hearing about it. It's coming. I'm glad it's here, but it's also like it's GoldenEye. Even with good joysticks, which the 64 controller did not have, even with good joysticks, it's still going to be GoldenEye. It's a dinosaur, and it was amazing when it came out. It was freaking awesome, but so was the Model T. We've made better stuff since then, and like the first time that I ever had that kind of notion was whenever Halo, the first Halo came out, years after this, and I was reading like Electronics Gaming Monthly, and somebody wrote in and they said, because not everyone had played Halo yet, and they wrote in and they said, so this Halo game, the multiplayer, how good is it compared to like GoldenEye, which is like the best, multiplayer like ever? And the editor of the magazine wrote back and said, imagine the biggest pile of crap that you have ever seen. Now imagine that pile of crap is just the tip of of an even greater, huger pile of crap. That is the Golden Eye multiplayer compared to Halo. And it was funny at the time, but really it was pretty true even for back then. Like, and Halo is dated from, since then, the original Halo, but it's it's not as good as you remember. It's just not. I would honestly, I would rather see. I know it's rare instead of it's from Rare, so it's cool to see that. But I would honestly rather see like the original Smash Brothers come to like the Switch or whatever. That would probably translate better to me. But people are excited about it. I hope everybody has fun. But I'll play it and or whatever. But it's it's just whatever to me.
yeah, I mean, it's a fun thing that just kind of popped out of nowhere. At least it wasn't on any of our radars, and all of a sudden this list, like I said, it got quite a few people in my office hyped that usually don't care, but I did warn them. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be as good as you remember, man.
It's all the
Uh,
plebes with their rose-colored nostalgia vision.
yeah. All right. Well, I already talked a little bit about what or at least a little bit what I played. How about yourself, man? What have you been doing?
So Justin Roiland makes his comeback on this podcast. I played a little game called High on Life. I had played it on Xbox Game Pass. I guess it's PC Game Pass because I'm playing it on a PC. I played it on Game Pass. Been hearing about it, or I first saw thing for a while ago. I was like, okay, that looks like a game, whatever. And then I heard it was, and then I saw a trailer and I was like, it's supposed to be good. And I was like, okay. And it looked kind of funny. And I was like, okay, this definitely looks different, better than I thought it was going to be. And then the game came out and everybody, it has like really rave reviews everywhere. Um, and I played it. I played through the first boss. I know you had a chance to play a little bit of it. How far did you play, Joe?
I barely played it just because I ended up playing a different game that I've been meaning to get in contact with, and then I ended up putting that aside for Hi-Fi Rush.
Okay. So,
So yeah, I didn't even make it to the first boss. I generally like their games. Like I played and beat the VR Rick and Morty game,
oh,
and I also did Trover Saves the Universe, and that was cleverly written and pretty good overall. So I was from the very beginning, I was looking forward to this game because I'm like, this should be interesting. It's at the very least.
yeah. Yeah. It's very funny to start. It's just, I think I sent you a text saying how funny it was in like the first 3 minutes. It is really hilarious. So they really front load that stuff, and it had me rolling with laughter pretty much immediately. It cools off a bit after about the first 15 or 20 minutes. It's kind of starts to slow roll some of the comedy, some of the story. Um, Took me about an hour to get to and beat the first boss. I'm playing on whatever like normal difficulty. Gameplay seemed pretty standard. Definitely not bad, but also not really doing anything that blew me away. At least at the beginning. Um, I am going to go ahead and spoil something here though. About the first boss. So the first boss is someone called Nine Torg, and then when you get up to them, so it's all aliens and stuff like that. So you get up to Nine Torg, and you find out that they are just a clone, and there's like 15 Torgs overall. So you get up to the boss, and Nine Torg has seven Torg captive because they all hate each other, and you hear them talk a little bit. So then you do the fight with Nine Torg, and you win, and you kill her, and then and then Seven Torg is still
It's
there.
7, 8, 9.
No, it's. I mean,
Oh, okay, good.
there's
That
not
was gonna
like
be a bad joke.
there's not that joke, but maybe there would be. I don't know, but anyway, or maybe it's Five Torg. I'm pretty sure it's seven though. But anyway, so Seven Torg, you're talking to her after you've killed Nine Torg, and she's still tied up, and you're blabbing about stuff. And she basically and you're basically like, okay, so they're all clones, and she's like, yeah, we're all clones. So blah blah, and she starts talking about how she's gonna do evil stuff, and I was like, so you're all clones, so you're all exactly alike. And she's like, yeah, yeah. And then I was like, okay. And I started to shoot her tied up. And she's like, oh, no. And I just kill her really easily. And I got a trophy or something from that. But I was like, why would I let you live if you're just going to do the exact same thing that I just killed Nine Torg for? So that was pretty clever. I gotta be honest. For them to write it that way and to make, I mean, because I could have let her live. They were like, you can go now and she'll escape or whatever. And but like your guns talk to you and your knife talks to you and stuff like that, and they say hilarious shit. But I'm probably not gonna play anymore because it's not really my thing. Um, I don't know. It seems okay, but it didn't really grab me as far as like the gameplay goes. But dadgum, it is pretty dang funny. The stuff at the very beginning is freaking hilarious. I gotta say with the lawyer, man, that's just great.
So yeah, they're right. The writing has always been really clever. Like I said, Trover Saves the Universe. They had and even like that simple VR Rick and Morty game. It is very short, but they have way more dialogue and things that you would never think was necessary. Well, and then you just start experimenting with things like, "Oh, what happens if I do this?" And then all of a sudden, like, oh wow, there's dialogue to this, and wait, it's still going. Uh, I'm just gonna put down the controller a little bit and see how long this dialogue goes for, stuff like that. It's just they are. I remember being like, in Trover Saves Universe, you meet some higher, beings, and you kind of listen to them, like, talk, and then you leave, and they're still talking, so then, they're just amongst themselves. I come back, and they're like, "Oh, you came back. Oh, okay, well, we don't really," like, and then just they keep on like, there's all this extra dialogue, like, "You should probably go now, right? You got better things to do," like, and
Like basically
it
they're
just keeps
saying
on
they're running out of things to say.
but they keep on going, and you're like, "Geez, what is," like, and then, or you get out of earshot, and they start their conversation, and just listening to how long this conversation is going, and it's just it goes for a while. You're like, "Geez, I feel weird just wasting my time sitting here just listening, like, eavesdropping," but it's
But
pretty
I
good.
mean, it's good because it just, I mean, like, how much does VO cost? I'm sure it's kind of expensive, but it's like, to start VO is one price, and to have 100 more words or 100, a couple more lines, it's going to cost more money. But how much more? There's probably like a diminishing return on how much more, and you can add a lot of value to somebody that wants to sit there and feel like the game is. It just makes the game feel like it's really fleshed out. So that part is really cool.
Yeah. Alright, well, then, the last game, I was playing was, Immortality,
Yeah.
We talked about try I talked about wanting to try it out after that, after the Game Awards, n or at least after we found out what the nominations were. I didn't get around to playing it as soon as I'd like, just, things got in the way. But I finally did get a chance to play, a decent chunk at the beginning, and I was actually surprised, how much of game there actually is to this. So, you mentioned you had played some of this as well, so I wanna know, what you play? How far did you get in?
I only played
And
for
what are
about
some of
a
your thoughts?
for probably
Yeah.
about an hour or 45 minutes or so. Um, it is an interesting concept, but I thought that the story was not really interesting enough from the get go. It has, and it's not really. I don't know. It's not really up my alley. I kind of know the basically the idea that they're going for. It's it's about a woman that becomes a famous actress, and it sort of starts with her being famous and talking on a late night show, and then you kind of do investigative work and go back into her past and sort of see how she got to that point. And apparently, there's probably some intrigue and stuff that goes on. Um, so you're kind of clicking on certain things in the game, and I clicked around a bunch, and I got stuff that started to get a little bit spicy, but it kind of took a little while to get there, and it was a little bit all over the place. Like, if you like to be a bit of a sleuth, like a detective trying to figure this stuff out, it could be pretty interesting. But to me, I just wanted a little bit more, a little bit faster before they slowed it down. So that's kind of how I felt. I did see several characters. There was a young guy, a young actor guy that she was in last scenes with, that seemed like he was kind of suspect, and then like the director seemed kind of suspect. But that's about all that I could really gather.
Okay. So to expound upon this a little bit more, the kind of so this game is done by, um, Sam Barlow, and uh, I know him from Her Story. He created so Her Story
Uh,
is a game that I had fun with, quite a few years ago now.
Long time, yeah.
It came out, shoot, uh, I want to say,
15,
maybe,
17.
yeah, maybe 2015, 2016, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I recommended this to you a long time ago. That game is,
Same.
also filmed in, with, with live actors, and that one is, you're investigating, uh, interrogation footage, essentially. And so, like, almost all of it is just a camera put down in front of someone who's in a interrogation office, and they're just you're scrubbing, listening for keywords, and based off the dial then you're typing into an old DOS computer system those keywords to see what else pops up. And from that, you're like, "Okay, here's the they mention something about Friday, so then you type in Friday and see how many video files pop up for Friday, or and you're trying to figure out why this woman is in a an interrogation, and then at like when you get to maybe 60 or 70% of the story, you can choose to just leave.
Right.
You end the game, or you can sit down and finish it to the conclusion, and it's actually really interesting that way. So this is very similar to that. This being immortality. So in the concept, I think a little bit more is she's wasn't necessarily a famous actress. It was like she's more of an attempted famous actress. She had a bright career, but things kept on going wrong. I think
Okay. Yeah.
the first film because they say that the director found her from like a coffee commercial or coffee ad, and so she is this first time actress, big production movie, and something happens in which the film is finished but canned. Then there's a her second film later, years later, has the same. I believe it was the same. Like uh, not the same director, but same, like, cinematographer from the first movie to the second movie, and that one something happened during filming, and that one got canned, or, like, it got shelved, and then there was a 3rd film much later, because I think the first film is late '60s, second film is, like, '70s, '80s time frame, and then the last one is, like, I wanna say maybe early 2000s, and it's like in which once again something happens to this movie, and so she doesn't, like, and she just kind of had in between. It just makes it seem like her life had disappeared, and you don't really know what's happened to her afterwards. So you're just trying to starting off with that interview, like late night talk show host clip. From there, that is your starting point, and you're scrubbing through film, so you have the segment of video footage. You can go forward and back, and you're trying to click on, uh, instead of her story, when you listen to for keywords, this one you're actually using, like, your mouse cursor to highlight, key items, whether it's a coffee cup, a face, or something in the background, and the system, as it were, is going to try to give you a something that connects to that. So if you click on a coffee cup on the late night show talk show host desk, then it'll automatically zoom in and then zoom out, and it's a coffee cup at a police precinct, which was the second movie. And then you can sometimes they'll let you click on one thing multiple times, like the actor or actress's face, and
You'll get
it doesn't
different things.
necessarily. Yeah, so you're not it's sometimes it stays in a loop, sometimes, you have to click on their face again, and they might break the loop, and you go into X amount of movies. So, like, the costume designer for the first film, I clicked on her a bunch to see how many times she pops up, and, each time you end up there has to be like a full almost a full movie's worth of actual stuff in there,
Yeah,
because
that's
you
a lot.
have for each of these movies, you have not only the movies, but you have their dry runs, or like uh, them not in costume, but like doing their rehearsals. You also have other interviews that they're doing, you talking about to different media and stuff like while on the set, and it goes really in depth. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. But I'd say I was maybe a half dozen to a dozen clips in before, and some of the clips were really short. Like, I clicked on a like the couch cushion or something like that. It brought me to a different. It was a cushion on a bed, and then it brought me to a couch cushion and zoomed out, and the clip was only like not even 10 seconds. I'm like, oh, that was really short. That was weird. Okay, and then I clicked on something else, and then I'm like, "Oh, wait, what did he say?" I rewound it, and then all of a sudden, I realized it kept on rewinding. I'm like, "Ah, crap." So that means the clips that they jump you to from when you click on an object could be mid-scene. So I had watched, like, a half dozen to a dozen clips. Turns out there's a bunch of them that the beginning portion of those clips I had not seen at all.
Yeah.
So I was like, so now I'm having to go through and scrub these, and so some of them that were it kind of when you exit the clips, you can organize them a little bit to, by chronological date or by like movie sequence. And so, but when you go back into the clip, it'll pretty much bring you where you left. So if you are at the very end, it'll bring you back at the end. And so I'm like, okay, let me rewind this thing. So as I'm rewinding one of these clips, all of a sudden it's everyone's it's the wrap up party for the first film,
Right.
and all of a sudden a little blip happens on the screen, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" Music changed, and it was a blip. It was just a white thing. I'm like, "Okay." I stopped it, hit play. Nothing happened. Like them just all acting I'm like, "Oh, that blip wasn't there." I rewinded it again. Blip happened again. I'm like, "Okay." So then I kind of went forward. Then slowly you can scrub the footage, rewind it slowly, and they're actually all talking backwards and everything like that too. And then all of a sudden this ghostly image appears on the screen, and it's completely unrelated. And it's slowly as I'm getting further and further back, eventually it takes up more and more of the screen to that person's there, and I'm trying to stop it, but it wouldn't let me stop quite. So I'm like, "Okay." I went to a different piece of footage, rewound that one, uh, and another image, ghostly image popped up again. And this time I was able to kind of make out what they were saying, and then by going back and forth, it all of a sudden clicked, like the actual footage did, and it zoomed in to that ghostly image, and then they started talking, and they started having like a thing. I'm like, "Geez, okay, kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, but this is odd." And so I was like, it won't really let you do much with them. So I'm like, all right, but you're listening to their dialogue. And I did this with a few more of these clips. And at one point, I'm like, okay, she said that this is a woman. She said something odd. I once again tried rewinding, but it actually wouldn't rewind it. It was at the end of because, and this is where it turned my head loose. It was like, so in the normal film, you're going from front to back. You're at the end of the film, you're rewinding it. So as you're rewinding it, that's when the image appears. You jump into the image. When you jump into the image, it is now playing in that same direction. So technically, it's playing backwards. So as you rewind it, you're going forward. So then I'm like, and then I went ahead, and so I'm fast forwarding this other clip, and once again, I realize, "Ah, crap, this is now the point they jump you into is not the start of this ghostly image. There is more to it." So now you have to go back to each one of these and see the ghostly image from fast forward it to the beginning of the ghostly image scene. Um, and there's a lot more. I think there's one for every clip. I'm not 100% sure, but I found quite a bit more of those. It's like, man, this game went from really simple to way more layers than I would like to have, and I'm like, it's almost daunting how much crap there is now. And
Yeah.
those ghostly images do not save. So only the key real footage is saving. And the first film happens to be about uh, a woman joining a monastery and more or less having to do with like making a contract with a demon. This is very much a 60s like Jesus Christ Superstar or something. I don't know, like The Exorcist or something. It's just is that in that kind of vein. So she ends up trying to this demon possesses her and tries to seduce the priest who is like born and raised in the convent. He's like everyone looks up to him for being like a great holy man, essentially. And the ghostly image of this woman, I'm like, I'm pretty sure she's a demon. I'm pretty sure she's a demon. Um, and then there was a scene with an angel, and as I scrubbed through that one, it like warped into this scrawny looking guy, and that's the first time I seen him, and he's just like, but he's split the in the scene of the film, um he's talking to this priest being trying to give him like salvation or something like that. He's supposed to be an angel. And so the ghostly image of this guy goes, uh, he's like, I feel like I've done this before or something like that, and he kind of walks off and I'm like, okay, so does he mean that he's an angel and he's done this scene from the movie before?
Yeah.
I'm like, it was very meta, and I was just like, crap, man, this is a game.
It sounds
Like that.
cool. I mean, it sounds really cool, but it also sounds like a lot of work to get the story out of it that you want. Whereas her story, I never played it, but from what you tell me, it's like this is what you're going for, and you can kind of get out of it as much as you want. Whereas like Immortality, there's a lot of really cool stuff there, but it's really hard and unclear how. I mean, maybe it's clear now to you, but it sounds pretty unclear how to actually get to all of it and know that you have finished with what you want of the game.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking that you could probably beat the whole game without ever knowing about those ghostly images. I wouldn't be surprised because the
But
idea
that
is
sounds like the
you
funnest
go
part of
through.
the game. The weird that sounds like the funnest, weirdest, coolest part of the game.
Well, because you're uncovering the mysteries of the films behind the scenes. Like I'm pretty sure there's you know, there's a death on scene for one of the movies, like, so therefore that's why they shut down the production. So you're getting to see all the drama behind the scenes,
Right.
and you're kind of uncovering her life and like these films, and that's kind of the excitement of the story. Now there's a whole other narrative, but much like her story, like I got you can get to one conclusion, and then if you really dive deep like I did, then you're like, "Oh, there's an extra layer or 2 in here." And that's actually pretty neat. Now, uh, once again, the her story was the most simplistic. This seems like the most, involved. Um, there is another game, uh, that, the Sam Barlow did, and that's, oh, was it Telling Lies? That's currently also on Game Pass, for now. I think it's actually gonna be leaving Game Pass pretty soon. Once again, live action film crew. I like, real people being filmed for these scenes, or that's what the image looks like. I have not actually had a chance to play this game. It's been on my, to-do list, but just so many other things in life taking up time. Now, I would like to do more with Immortality. Immortality is pretty neatly done. Um, but once again, now that I've unlocked, I now know how many layers this thing goes. It's almost it's almost becomes like an OCD thing test,
Yeah.
right? Like, how much of this do I want? Do I have to have that need to fill, like to uncover every little nook and cranny? Or will I be satisfied just watching someone else who's already did the synopsis for me? Because
Yeah, that's
it's not.
kind of the thing that I think. Like, I mean, you can play as much as you want, but at some point, it's like, can I just go on YouTube and get this get this story done in a quicker way rather than just bang my head against the wall on. I mean, maybe it's not that bad, but you kind of click around and you make all kinds of mistakes. Is the gameplay fun enough to merit the time it takes to get through it? And I don't know. You
Yeah,
like FMV games though; they're kind of up your alley, so it might be that way to you, but it just wasn't for me.
yeah, it's one of the things that I wish it was, because they start you off with not knowing much of anything. So it is part of the charm, but at the same time, it's also without any guidance, you feel really lost. And so it
Yeah,
takes it's you have to actually spend an hour or two just to get yourself warmed up to the game, and like you're in a flow, and by that time you're like, okay, now at least I have an objective, I know what to do personal, like you kind of have your own ideas on how the game works.
yeah,
um and
yeah.
so yeah, it's an interesting game to say the least.
It's
I
definitely
think it
interesting. I
I wish
definitely,
there's more
yeah.
puzzle, like if it was live action FMV and it had like actual puzzles to it. Like the puzzle is the basic mechanics, just uncovering it. So
I
it
mean,
might as well just be a text
com-
adventure almost.
compared to her story, it sounds like it needs more of a home base. Like with her story, it sounds like you could always come back to the computer and like retry stuff. And I think this kind of game needs like a crazy corkboard
Oh,
where
they do. That's exactly how the game's set up. From that for original cutscene of them at the doing that late night talk show interview, you can click every time you click and uncover a new image, like her face, or even the
I
late
remember
night talk show
you
host
can go
face.
back out and you could see like some stuff, but
You see every clip that you've unlocked, and then you can rearrange them how they were, in like I said, in timeline fashion or in
but
yeah, chronological order. So
that
that is literally
that's
the cork board there.
but
It shows you
that's not enough to me. There needs to be like a
they
place where you can put notes and you can and
uh
stuff like there needs to be like a okay, what was I thinking? Like I played this game for 3 hours on Saturday and then I didn't get a chance to play it again until Thursday. It's like, wait, what was I thinking? Why was this? It's like you need to be able to type stuff in, put notes, stuff like that. And yeah, people don't like to do that, I guess. So you shouldn't have to. I get but I would want to do that. But maybe that's just the D&D in me coming out. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be nice and helpful for sure. Games like, that in general. That's when you break out the, memo pad,
Yeah.
for your IRL, like, and then just make notes to yourself where you left off. But when it
Yeah.
comes to yeah, they even go a step further with that cork board, the way how they have it organized. They have it organized by actual scene from the clips you're looking at, or you can switch the image so you can see the images that you actually clicked on. So if I clicked on the coffee mug, it'll a couple times it'll show the coffee mugs and in that order. So it'll be like, wait, so how did what led me to this scene? And then I can transition it, flip them like, oh, I did that. I got to the scene because I clicked on the guy who was starting, film take 9. I clicked on that guy's face, or I clicked on the actual board itself. And so, that was one way I did it, because I quick spam that to see how many of them I can unlock, and there was a bunch. So every time they did a film shoot, it was like, yeah, that board. Here's another clip with someone going, and take this and this. And so I'm like, all right, so that might be a I tried not to do it too much, because I'm like, I think that might be a kind of a cheat, is to find something like that and just, I've as I'm unlocking them, I would like to watch the scene, opposed to just being like, spam them all, quick organize them, set them in the proper order, and then watch it from front to back. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. That's kind of like when you feel like you're cheating the game instead of playing the game. That's not as much fun. I don't think. I kind of yeah, it's a cool idea though. The sleuthing of it is a really cool idea. So that's I mean, I wish it was more for me. I'm glad you liked it as much as you did. I hope you get a chance to play it some more. Because if you do finish it, I'd like to hear you tell me more about it.
yeah, I mean, I can totally see why people have, why this got the notoriety it did so quickly, before the video game awards, and it
Yeah.
still has a stellar reviews. A lot of people have just rave reviews about it. So, yeah, I'm really curious about that. I would like to play more, but we'll see how if time allows it. Because I'm still going to be playing Hi-Fi Rush. I'm enjoying that one a lot, and I'm every time I look at it, it's like I want them to make a new Jet Set Radio looking this good. Really do.
Yeah. Maybe they will. Maybe they will.
All right. So, yeah. Other than that, yeah. What you been watching, man?
So, I've been watching a couple different things. I I'll talk about this because it's the oldest thing. I watched Andor on Disney Plus. It's the Star Wars thing about the guy Andor before the events of Rogue One. So it's set, after Episode 3 and before A New Hope. And whenever I first started watching this, I thought that it was okay. I didn't know how many episodes it was going to be. I guess I could look that up, but I just didn't bother. So I assumed it was going to be about 6 episodes, like some of their other ones have, and I thought it might be kind of. So it was. I found it to be kind of boring at the beginning. At the beginning, they had like a fight and some stuff like that, but I was like, this, like, who cares about really any of this? I don't know any of these characters. It's whatever. Um, but as I was watching it, I got to episode 6 where they do a thing, and then it wasn't over, and I was like, oh, there's another episode. And so I went on. I just assumed it'd be like about 8, and I was like, okay, it's not really wrapping up. So it ended up being 12 episodes long. I think it was 12. It ended up being a lot, and they. I was pretty impressed. It's one of the better shows that I've seen about Star Wars. One of the better shows on Disney Plus. Definitely better than anything that they've put out for the Marvel stuff. I don't think it's better than The Mandalorian, but it's pretty close. It's definitely different, and I was just thoroughly impressed. They do a thing up to the middle of the season, and then they do another thing after that, and they do a really good job of building the characters and making you care about them and showing you that there are different sides to a lot of these characters. Um, it honestly felt a lot more like an HBO show than um, any of the other shows that I've seen. Like, and by what I mean by that is with HBO shows, they're typically really long episodes and they feel kind of boring at the beginning of the show of the episode and of the season, but by the end of each episode and especially at the end of the season you feel like your mind is blown because like all of these pieces have finally like come together and it's a really cool effect. And I feel like they did that pretty well with Andor with this show, and it sets up for season two. I don't know if they'll actually do it. I haven't heard, but if they do, I am definitely interested in seeing it because there's some pretty cool stuff in it. There's probably the best storyline that they don't really finish up with is uh, Grand Moff Tarkin and kind of what she's doing to help the resistance and the rebels sort of secretly because she has like a high position and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool. Like it really fleshes her out and the actress that's playing her is really good. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I recommend it. If you're into Star Wars at all, I definitely recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, it's I unfortunately there's too much content for that, and I just gave up with just like I did with Marvel. I'm like I there's just I eventually I just lost all interest. So, but
Yeah, I mean,
I'm glad you
there's
found something that was like a hidden gem for you. So,
yeah, it is a bit of a hidden gem because I heard meh and bad stuff about Obi-Wan. So I just kind of skipped over that and I'm probably never going to watch that. So this was a bit of a breath of fresh air and yeah, pretty cool.
all right, man. Well, Um, on my end, I've just been we'll talk more about it on another damn anime podcast, but I've been watching a bit of new anime, quote unquote new anime. A lot of stuff has been getting dubbed. And they just keep on dubbing new things. I'm actually really impressed on how much this season has been dubbed. And in fact, as of like today, even like more stuff dropped that I was like, "Oh, wow, did not expect that." So it's really, yeah, it's kinda delightful, actually. It's just, I'm actually gonna probably end up dropping some of the stuff that I've been following subbed because I just don't have enough time, and it's nice to have this, I can play it while I eat, and then I have my attention diverted. There's
That
1
is
or
the
2 of
hard
them
part
that I'm
about subbed. Yeah.
yeah, it's just you have to give your undivided attention, and
Tape your eyeballs open.
there's 1 or 2 of them that I'll probably stick with even if it gets dubbed, but for the most part, like, if it's subbed, yeah, it kinda sucks that some of them are, like, maybe 4 episodes behind, and,
Mm.
but I'm like, "You know what? It's fine. I will, like, I don't need to know," and some of these in some of the cases, I already know because I read the manga, and so I was like, "Yeah, alright," just having them come out dubbed is just super convenient, super nice, and I can also show it to my wife, and, it's easier for us to both enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's, just a bunch of anime.
Yeah, I'll be
There's a lot
talking
of
about
anime
some
out.
anime too. It's gonna be wild.
Alright, well, thanks guys, for sticking around this long. This has been, uh, another Dead Pixel, episode 36. Thanks guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Nick, for sticking around.
All right, thanks guys. See you next.
We will go ahead and you'll see us shortly again with another damn anime podcast.
Yeah, we're
Thanks, guys.
gonna head over and do that. All right, bye.
Take it easy.